Welcome to the Didi and Lital Show. Advice, thoughts, and stories from a married couple on cybersecurity, technology, and life in general. Now here are your hosts, Didi and Lital.
Hello, everyone. How is everybody doing? Welcome to the Didi and Lital Show. Very happy to have you here. We have a guest today. But before we go, I want to plug in a promo to our great sponsors. We work at Ort and Hunters. Hi, Didi. How's it going?
Things are awesome. Apparently, I was very, very, very wrong. Messi didn't choke. He didn't choke the game. I was sure he's going to choke it. They led 2-0.
It was an amazing game.
It was a great game.
Amazing game.
This is why the World Cup is the World Cup. And everybody that's not here watches it. I texted my buddies in South America when they choked the 2-goal lead first, and then they choked the 1-goal lead, but they really got it over the hump in the penalty kicks.
Do you see, Didi, I suffered because of the World Cup.
Why?
So if you look at my haircut, while I cut my hair short, it's usually not this way. But the barber shop I go to, the guys are Moroccan. And I actually been avoiding it for the past couple of weeks because I thought maybe, hey, it's going to be pretty exciting. And
You'll go to the Moroccan guy.
Yeah. And I actually had plans to go to Morocco in April.
Okay.
But then, my wife's brother got into the Boston Marathon, so we decided to stay. And yesterday when I went to get my haircut, my Moroccan barbers were happy to see me, and they asked me like, hey, Dennis, are you still going to Morocco? Is it booked? I'm like, nah, I'm not going there anymore. I'm going to go to Croatia now.
Not a good way to start the conversation.
Was he happy about it?
He asked me a few times whether I thought that was a funny joke. And then he took it out of my hair. Though, you have to pay a little bit for making jokes like that. And I did not mind paying with a haircut.
Yes.
So we have today with us a guest. Dennis, introduce yourself.
Hey, my name is Dennis, Dennis Knjazihhin, and I am, a technologist and long-term friend of Didi and Lital, and I am extremely happy to be invited to their awesome show to talk about, technology, security, and soccer, or whatever else comes to their minds.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good. And we wanted you to come today so we can talk about building products, specifically security products, but we can talk because now you have your own different venture. So we'll plug it in a minute. And we want to talk about building teams because I think you have an interesting formula that I want to share with everyone. So let's start. Didi and Dennis, you've been working together for a while building technology. So maybe we start with this background and it will lead us to like your special sauce in building technologies.
And of course, I'll plug in the shirt because this is Vikings. Yay. This is going to be a repeated theme in our conversation. No worries.
That's a Viking.
Nice. We're gonna also, when I'll post it, I'll plug in the Muppets doing in the Navy with Vikings, which is gonna be an interesting thing every time I think of Vikings. But I think as we talk through this, we'll get to the theme. Dennis and I know each other now for almost 10 years because I did the due diligence on the company he was working at the time. We can shamelessly give a plug into
I
Deepak.
worked at Avexa for Deepak, who's well-known and awesome name in security, especially in identity. RSA and Didi ended up buying the company, and
Worst mistake ever.
Well, worked out for me, so I'm not complaining.
Worked out for me too.
Yeah. So we became friends as we worked together at RSA, and after that, we had an awesome opportunity, probably one of the most exciting things I have done, certainly in my career. And that was to build a product and a team from the ground up for an alpha project in Cisco. And what worked really well is that we have very similar views on how to do that, on how a team should be structured, and what people should do how they should work, and we were like great partners. It was an amazing journey, and we'll tell you about it today, and we'll tell you lessons learned and approaches taken, and why at least we believe it worked well, right?
Yes, and why, if you are building specifically a security company, this is the path to take. Because, well, Dennis can talk about Genie and Life Sciences and if it works there as well. And I believe it does.
Yeah, it does. Like since since our adventure at Cisco, we've left and done our own thing. So Didi went, and he's, I would say, in my opinion, the key person at Ord. And I went and co-founded a company in Life Sciences called Genie Life Sciences. And we continue to employ the same strategies for team building and execution. And, it's working great. We should just share it and see how it resonates with everybody else.
Cool. So let me pause for a second and ask you, what's an alpha project? Because that's pretty unique, right? It's like incubation of a startup within a giant Cisco.
Yes.
And maybe that will also help those that are in corporates and not in startups think about how you can apply what we're going to learn today. So let's start by explaining what you did over there. And
so, Dennis, which one of us is going to give the PC version and which one of us is going to give the non-PC version?
I thought we both start with non-PC version,
Okay.
but I'm happy to take. You just have to start because, you lead or how frank I can be in your podcast and what language I can and cannot use.
You'll build on that. Yeah.
You can use whatever. Though.
We are non-PC here.
So
Right.
I'll open this with, you can say whatever the fuck you want, just to make sure that we're clear. Now, so a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, there was a guy called John Chambers, and he had a racket working in Cisco. What happened is he had a group of buddies of his that every time that he was stuck with the bureaucracy of Cisco, he would tell them, you know what, we want to build this, but bureaucracy will never let us build it. So go off and build it, and I'll buy you. That was kind of his model. It was spin in, spin out, spin in, spin out. The Nexus, which is one of their biggest switches, was built that way, and a few other things were built that way. And somebody, I think it was Pankaj, basically realized that engineering is very unhappy in Cisco because we were spinning out a lot of money to third parties to build stuff that we knew we should build. And the head of basically the chief product officer or the chief development officer, I think that was his kind of title, decided that he wants to build internal startups inside Cisco, which they will give money to in form of stock, very much like a startup, with goals of achieving sales, very much like a VC assesses. If to invest in a company, they'll continue to invest in the company and it continue to build the next steps. We had 3 milestones. Other companies had other milestones. There was technology goals and also selling goals. We had a goal, and we have a T-shirt for that with the number 200 because our goal was to sell to 200 security customers in Cisco.
Within what time frame?
In 3 years.
Okay.
Now, if you think in the grand scheme of things of Cisco, 200 customers is a piss in a bucket.
Yeah.
Because
drop in the ocean.
Exactly. When we turned on Google Analytics for one of our firewall platforms, we discovered that they had 200,000 people logging into that daily. That kind of gives you a sense of the size of how much Cisco products are out there. And that product, by the way, sucks. But we'll discuss that at a later point in time. Sorry, Pramod. I had to say that. But with regards to Alpha Project, the idea was to create innovation from within. It was the ability to create people inside Cisco teams, and we were encouraged to hire internally from Cisco, which we had limited success with. But
which we didn't do.
Which we tried.
I didn't say we didn't try. I just say we didn't do.
We did hire Sanjay.
Yes, there was one person hired, the entire team from Cisco.
Yes.
That is correct.
Yeah, correct. And I stood on my head to avoid the next hire that was...
And I don't mean it in a negative way, right? We certainly, as I said, Didi tried, but it didn't work out. Hiring is very hard. I really believe that. And, you want to find a person, as you guys hopefully have read in Joel and Software, who is smart and gets shit done. And that's a unique combination. And those people are hard to find because once they exist in the wild, people don't let them go. They just take them from one place to another to another. They don't interview in the wild anymore. And it's a long and, painful process. And as we're going through it, we just, didn't find folks maybe who had those properties at Cisco, maybe who had those properties but didn't want to go and do an alpha project because, they had fairly, secure job and, well-known prospects and didn't want to take the risk.
I think there was also another thing. One of the things that I noticed when we went, remember we drove up to Boxborough to interview a whole bunch of people. And one of the things I noticed, and this was a very different, and this is going to be a repeating theme throughout our conversation, is the complete ownership. We talked to teams that were composed of 50, 60 people. Each one owned a nugget of data. If you wanted to have one thing done, you had to bring in 50 people. I own that part of the horse, and I own that part of the horse, and I own the S, and I own the nose. And there was no one person that I could shake and say, who actually owns this functionality in the firewall? And because of that, we had that challenge, which reminds me, this is kind of rule number one of the Didi and Dennis hiring model. Smart and get shit done. Second, hire the best person you can. Our boss at that time, Sean, wanted to build a pyramid, like 2 very senior people, 3 more junior people. He hired, before we got there, Sachin. Sorry about that, Sachin. I'm going to mention the fact that you couldn't write a single line of code when we hired you. And there were he wanted to build that hierarchy, which is a nice way to build pipeline.
That's the corporate way.
That's the corporate way. And
Not
by the way,
startup way, I guess.
And by the way, Dennis thinks this is. What do you think about that, Dennis?
I think it's stupid. So
why?
So look,
Elaborate, please.
We're going to use analogy, right? It's analogy we've been saving a little bit, but we kind of believe in kind of 2 broad spectrums of engineering teams, right? One is a village, and one is a Viking ship. I'll try to be a little bit neutral, even though I have a clear preference, and so does Didi, of course, to the Viking ship. There are some pros and cons to each, right? And, when you on the Viking ship, everybody rows, right? Nobody's special, right? Nobody gets some unusual job. Everybody rows. If you don't row, you're thrown off the Viking ship.
You swim with the sharks.
You swim with the sharks. And look, if you want to be a cook, if you do want to be special, hey, I want to be a cook, I want to be a navigator, go row. Once you're done rowing, you can cook, right? So everybody holds their own. Everybody contributes. It's clear what everybody contributes to. And the ship goes in one direction, and everybody is incentivized to push the ship as quickly as you can in that one direction to, go and pillage the village, right? In the village, on the other hand, life is very different. It's a little bit more relaxed. You go and you
specialize.
You plant your crops.
You don't have
you
sharks
specialize.
around you.
You don't have sharks around you. Yeah.
There's the blacksmith, and they know how to deal with one thing. You have
That's right.
The farmers that do other things. You have the merchants that deal with other things, and everybody's specialized.
But you get a little bit slow and fat through that. The advantage, I have to point out, right? Villages eventually grow into towns, right? And have strong defenses, and it's great. But if you want to disrupt, if you want to attack, right, you should be more like a Viking ship than a village. So, when we went off to hire, we just cared about, are you going to do something? Are you going to, you're writing code. Are you going to write code? How much code are you going to write?
This came from somebody that will remain nameless that came to Dennis and me and said, I just want to be an architect. I just want to design. I just want to critique people's stuff. And critiquing, by the way...
Borrow and then critique.
Exactly. And they didn't want to, which is going to be another theme for another talk about the Peter principle and how that person is stuck at the same level that we hired him now 10 years later. Well, the guy that did row is now a DE. So there is an advantage even in big corporation for rowing and understanding that you need to first and foremost do your job.
You know, this is actually a good good segue on to point something out. I think people might be listening to that and they say, well, you know, and I use example of writing code. It's like, well, eventually, you know, you have other responsibilities. You have a lot of people reporting to you and you stop writing code. Well, no, you do that because you're lazy, right? I honestly believe that, right? There is no reason to. Well, I understand if it's a 1,000-person organization and, like, you know, you're truly no longer a village but a huge town. Yeah, there are roles don't do that. But if you're a startup, if you're disruptive, if you're a small organization within the bigger part, you better write code. I'm going to give two examples. One is our good friend Daron. He's excellent, and he right now at Cisco is a DE.
Distinguished engineer.
So if you look at Cisco, just for those of you who don't know, as an individual contributor, it's second most senior title you can get.
Third. You keep forgetting there's a fellow too.
Yeah, sure. There are two fellows. Just to be clear, at Cisco, which has huge number of people, they're like, you know, 6 fellows, right? So like less than executive VPs. So DE is conceivably as high as you will rise probably in your career. And he's still on the ops rotation, meaning that if something goes down, you know, once every number of weeks, he gets paged. When something goes down, he'll go in, he'll dig in, and then he will uncover it and he'll fix it because he's a Viking, and that's how you live. And, you know, and I'll take that from perspective maybe as not individual contributor, as a manager, since I was running the engineering team. It didn't matter. I was, you know, I would code. I think at some point, you know, even when the team grew to like over 20 direct reports, no, I mean, just even talking like direct reports, still continue to, you find time, you do it, you row, and then you do whatever else you want to do that makes you special. But
actually,
but
it's really important to row. So Lital yells at me because I do this at like 11 o'clock at night, and she says that I disrupt her sleep. But I like to do the code reviews at that point in time because that's when I'm clearest. And I want to make sure that I know what people contribute. There's no better way to know what everybody contributes besides code review, because you can see who's cutting corners, who's half-assing, and who's like really taking the time to think through things. You can also see through the code reviews who collaborates, because you can see who actually asks, oh, hey, Anton, do you mind taking a look at my code? Who asks, hey, Yana, did I get this right? You can see who actually cares about the completeness of the task, which is another topic that we need to cover this time here, about the completeness versus the half-assing, which is not half-assing. I'm being disingenuous. Bigger teams have QA teams. So you think I'm done with my stuff and somebody in QA will take a look at this and this is not my responsibility.
Yeah, that's another example of specialization and splitting some of the responsibilities, which, you know, also not a big fan of. You know, we have always believed that instead of building, you know, horizontal teams where somebody does one thing, let's say architecture or UI or backend or QA, and then pass on to the next team. These areas where things get passed off, they create friction. People claim it's a necessity once you get big enough. I don't quite believe it. I think vertical teams can scale very far. We've certainly scaled them very, very far.
Yep.
So you don't have a specialized UI person.
Well,
you do, but everybody contribute a little bit. Like, what's the model? Because you do need somebody that understands a little bit more about UI, right?
You're right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And this is an excellent question, right? So how does like a vertical team work, right? So if you think about, let's say some traditional areas of knowledge, you know, front end, back end, maybe infrastructure, maybe database, right? Sure. You know, we have 4, and, you know, depending on your product, depending what you do, you'll split them slightly differently. So your vertical team, should have somebody who's an expert in each one of those areas. Maybe it won't. Maybe you can only cover 3 out of 4. That's okay. And when work comes, right, and it's heavily focused on a given area, let's say it's UI, then you do have an expert, and that person provides some of the leadership or help of what to do. But then everybody else contributes, right? Just because it's not an area where they're the expert, right? They are proficient there. They're proficient there, just being part of the team to learn, and they do the work. And then maybe, a few weeks later or a month later, there is a lot more focus on another area, let's say the database or the back end. And then that person takes more of a lead and helps everybody else adjust. And like, what's the power of that? Why is that important? I've seen lots of times where people try to build a roadmap. So product managers, whoever, they build a roadmap and say, hey, this is what our product should do. And instead of focusing on business requirements, we need like A, B, or C to grow our business. What they would say, well, we need, this is how much we can do in the UI because this is how big the UI team and this is how much backend. So the work ends up being driven by capabilities versus by business need. That's not what we want. Like the reason you want these like vertical teams is any amount of work you have or any work you have, any team can pick up. So the next most important thing isn't going to be picked up by, the one person who has expertise, but he won't be free or she won't be free for another 6 months. It will be picked up by the next team who's free, and they'll do a good job at it. So there is no, technology or technological capabilities shouldn't drive your business needs, right? Your business needs should drive what you create in technology. Yeah.
Let me ask you something before you go on, because I've been thinking about it. I'm not in dev, I run marketing teams, and I do try to build my own Viking team. Everybody knows more of just their own role. People row together. I go and I know how to do things at the back end of my website. I know how to do SEO. I know how to plug in LinkedIn ads, and I'm trying to get my hands dirty as much as I can because I think you have to. You need to know. So and if you think about other business function, and I think it will be really helpful for everyone listening because not everyone is in dev. If you
That's
think
not
about,
their fault.
Maybe they want to, maybe that they will switch. We have teams of security teams on, listening to us that build security teams. How do you think about those kind of teams? Like, can they create a Viking chip?
Of course they can.
Of course, yeah.
They should, right?
They should.
How do you think about
mindset,
it? Like, if you're in finance, what would you do? Like, other functions. Is that kind of like, because maybe people think, that's fine. If you're in R&D, dev, it's not for me. So
let's start with the best example I have is the Snowflake world. Right now, when we talk to our account manager
at Snowflake,
she is a little bit of an SE, a little bit of a BDR, a little bit of everything, and you could see that the people talking to the customer, what they say, very much like our sales guy Pete, he says, "I own everything customer." So that means that they need to know everything about the customer and whatever the customer needs is. It's a completeness. Now here comes the big challenge with a lot of what we just said. It's the how do you find the right people? Because even in finance, you'll see the people that want to own. They will tell you, "We want you to talk to us about what the business needs. We'll deal with everything, the mechanics of the systems, the mechanics of the controls, the mechanics of everything." And some of them you'll see are downright developers in Excel.
People in HR, they'll tell you we are recruiting, we are kind of business partners,
Specialization in HR, I really don't believe in. That's a completely other ball of wax. But by the way, I'm very grateful for our amazing CFO/HR person, Gwen. She's amazing.
We have HR, Genie. We have an email address. It actually doesn't go anywhere, but you can email it. It's called.
Are you hiring?
I need an adult at genielifesciences.com. You can certainly reach out.
And it goes
to you or to.
I don't believe it goes anywhere. It just exists, but there is nobody on the other end.
You're not the adult.
No,
I was definitely not voted to be the adult. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Maybe Joe should be the adult.
Maybe we can certainly, find a volunteer.
Now, Dennis is very brave here when you sit behind the microphone and the green screen and everything is awesome. Dennis, when we were trying to recruit, so the Viking model sounds awesome on paper, but after you interviewed interviewee number 81.
Oh yeah, it's awful. Like here's where one of my big appreciations for Didi came in. So let me I'm sorry, Didi, I'll take a long explanation of like a few minutes because it's just worth it. It's incredibly important to hire the right person. It makes all the difference in the world. I was lucky enough to learn that early in my career. And I only hire people who I believe are better than me, right? When you have that person join, right, it's just a joy. There is an immediate trust. There is immediately things get done. They get done correctly. You don't need to kind of cover or supplement or just suffer just because you have a new person. And, we ran statistics because we interviewed just so many people, like hundreds of people. That we end up hiring about 5%. So in order to be able to make it to the team, you have to be somewhere in the top 5% of the talent pool. And when you go from person to person to person to person, like interview fatigue sets in. And interview fatigue, this is where Didi was heading. I got it much faster than Didi. And at some point, you just like, okay, just I'll take that person. I'm done. I just can't do it anymore. But Didi had more strength, and when he saw me flounder and be ready to accept just about anybody, he would always jump in, and continue to savagely sift through candidates and continue to exclude 95% of people who came through. At the end, that just resulted in an amazing team who just continued to get things done.
So let's give some tips for interviewing, how to identify a Viking material.
So first rule is the Dennis and Didi method is somebody needs to be able to fix somebody else's code. If you can't fix somebody else's code, you're useless. If you can't write code fast, on demand, under pressure, you're useless. And third, do homework and be able to explain this. And this is a really important part, the homework, and I'll explain why. Apparently, engineers, as you know, are not very talkative. If I need to get my engineers to talk to another engineer or another engineer to explain why he does a good job, if he writes code and he talks about his code, those that are good will be very passionate. They'll talk about it with passion. They'll explain this. A best example is our buddy Jay. So we wanted to hire a candidate, and there was a question about his interviewing skills. Did he interview well, not interview well? I said, I have a great idea. Let's send him homework. I'm asked to build basically what we were building in the UI. And in 3 days, he built more code than we had in the product at that time. And he came in and he spoke it with tons of passion about why the UI needs to be like this and why is this operationally ready. And the people that had challenges with how he worked basically kind of went out the door and said, "You're right," through a grumble, and left. And the homework since then has been a very important part of my interview process because it tells me how committed you are. I'll give you a couple of other examples that happened recently. We gave homework to a candidate, and he wrote some crap code really fast. And when we asked him to fix it, he gave us explanations, and a very detailed explanation. And I was asking, yeah, but why are you not doing this in the code? And he wrote another big explanation. And what I was telling my dev team is, this is a good example of somebody that wants to talk, not the code. I don't need a talker, I need a coder. And
so let's spend a few seconds on the homework, because we certainly share that experience and kind of knowledge of what do we mean with homework, but it's worth just mentioning as a recipe, right? What that means, going back to like smart and get things done, like you can tell if somebody's smart in like 10-minute conversation. That's the easy part of the interview. A lot of people are smart, or the ones that are not, you'll figure it out quickly. But as Dee says, like many times, sometimes we go over the interview and, the person is just not good at interviewing, let's say, not good at maybe opening up or being social and giving good explanation. Sometimes you also have some kind of unconscious bias, right? Towards somebody. It just happens. It's a fact of life, and we all try to, work our way past that. So we need some neutral way to assess knowledge and a way to remove any kind of biases we have. So what we have done is we would give a homework. So what would be for us, since in software development, it would be a small software project. And we would say it'll take maybe a day to do. Right, if you spend a day on it, it will give person a week to do so. Just because, look, if I give you something to do for tomorrow, you might not have tomorrow free. And when people complete it, it shows a couple of things. Is one, they know how to code, right? And then two, as you review what they have done, it gives you very, very good insight of how good or bad of a coder they are. And the approach, maybe they're going to impress by doing something really fast. We have that ready the next day, incomplete, but super fast. Or they might take a little longer and they will impress you how thorough they are. When Jay submitted his, I still remember it. Not only did it do everything that we asked it to do, it had full test coverage, full explanation of how to launch it, how to install it, what infrastructure it needs, absolutely you could think of. He just did an amazing job. And kind of why is this kind of, let's say, good way to also remove biases, because it's just, fact, it's data. It's hey, it's here, it's working, or it's not working. And also, if you end up giving the same homework, which we did, we had a small library of homeworks that we gave depending on, the background of the person. We'll give one or another, but it was the same homework given to many people a lot of times. We could compare also from candidate to candidate. There's one that we use for interns. We've given hundreds of times, right? Yep. So we had hundreds of samples. So we knew many different approaches to take it, many different, ways to succeed or fail. We'd also hide tricks in it. One of my favorite one, and not very complicated, say, hey, add a delete operation, make sure it's idempotent. And then, nobody read that part, and they're always not making that idempotent, which is fine. In reality, I didn't expect them to pay that much attention. It was there so I can go back and point out that there is a bug, right? And it's hey, it's not idempotent. And then see how quickly can they fix it. How do they fix it? How do they react to it? what Didi was saying before, will there be an excuse or a quick PR put up that will go off and fix it? So there is, I won't say it's art. It's more like science once you get into this.
Yes.
Giving this homework really will tell you a lot about the candidate.
And the thing that this is really important, this is a pet peeve of mine. One of the things that to make the hiring process scientific is critical to remove biases. We encountered sometimes biases with our team, even with our team, because people don't realize that they have biases. And the first question we've asked is, how did they do on the Java test? And if I got excuses about work-life balances and we don't think that they're a good cultural fit, I say, how did they do on the Java test? And if they didn't do the Java test, I'm sending a team to make sure that the candidate does do the Java test, and then we compare the numbers. And if somebody didn't get the numbers of found bugs in the Java test, I don't care what the team has to say about the person's personality, because that's the thing that matters.
One thing worth mentioning, is, and it's really small, just thought of it, is because we've given the test the same time many times, one question might arise, what about cheating? It actually has happened. We had somebody cheat. But honestly, it was very, very clear, because after they're done, right, and after we reviewed the code, we asked questions about it, right, whether it's then in-person interview or over the phone, and it becomes super clear if they actually did the work or not. So even though it's, take home, do it on your own, there is no cheating around it as well.
So there's even a funnier anecdote about this. So Dennis and I used to interview interns in Amherst.
Oh, yeah.
So we gave the same Java test. So we got, the reason that this Java test was invented was very funny, because we got to the Cisco booth in Amherst and we had nothing. UMass Amherst. We had no giveaways. We were standing between Facebook and Google that gave amazing giveaways. They have real budget. And they're Facebook and Google versus Cisco that, we had to explain that we're not the food company.
We are standing next to banks after the financial crisis,
Yeah.
right? Who had better giveaways than us. We had. I was also mad at
Pens,
the
the
recruiter. We
pens.
had pens, and the pens were broken. Like
Yes.
each third pen did not work.
Yes. So we improvised. What did we do? We said we print out the Java test. I used my charms and skills to get the admin lady to print out our Java test, and we told the candidates that we're not willing to talk to them until they get the Java test. And apparently the FOMO is a really cool thing because people are not. Once we told them we were not willing to talk to them, everybody wanted to talk to us. We made
Creates
them,
a little bit competition between them. Yeah.
and we made good use of the pens. We told people that they can keep the pens because
It's
If
also
they're
a
not
point of
broken.
efficiency. Remember, if you talk to a person, right, you can only talk to very few people in parallel. But if you have a test, we just give out the test to everybody. And if you're only going to talk to the people who can do something with it, right? Now all of a sudden you cut the number of people you have to talk to by 80%,
Yes.
and the ones that you end up talking to are better candidates. We're pretty brazen too. Like
Yes.
we'd go into like the Google and Facebook lines, and while they're waiting to talk to somebody there, we'd give them the test and see if you
yeah,
could peel them
exactly.
off.
In the meantime, you can do the test while you wait in line. The funny thing is that one candidate we know because we hired a couple of people from them tried to do the test several times, at least twice. And
Three times. We went there 3 years in a row, and the same person ended up, I think, went from undergrad to grad. I just remember that person who took test 3 times and
Never
was able to,
never succeeded. He even took it to his room, put it in the computer to find the bugs, and couldn't pass it. So
that test, just for the audiences here, it wasn't to write code. It was a code review test. So we had a Java application was exactly 1 page, right? So it's easy to print and hand out, and was littered with bugs. And the question is, well, go and find all the bugs. The more you find,
it's Dennis's old hardware code from the Symmetrics days.
the more bugs you find, the higher in the stack your resume will be. And what we would tell people is we just like when we hire, we just go down the stack until we fill our positions. So the question was like, well, can I apply even if I didn't take the test? Sure, you can apply. It just your resume will be at the bottom of the stack. If you have to reach that far, you have to reach that far. But the candidates at the top will get the first call.
Yep.
I had actually two things I think that are important to mention too in the Viking world of what is important. I think number one, and I hope we can spend a few minutes talking about is delivery.
Yes.
Making sure that everybody delivers, and number two is common goals.
Yes.
And maybe you can take off on the first one, delivery and continuous delivery, and then we can talk about the importance of common goals.
So delivery and completeness of delivery for me is, if you remember, we were just saying that there's a tie-in with security at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, when an engineer delivers code, I need them to build the tests. I need them to know and own. Right now, every MMF, every unit of work that we deliver in terms of a feature has somebody that is a one throat to choke. And they need to know everything about it. Why did the customer want this? They need to explain this to our marketing guy in a clear way. Why are we building this feature? What business will this bring us? And they need the completeness. And when I say completeness, they also need to understand the security aspects of this. Mm-hmm. So right now, the team is pushing me of making sure that our GitHub is SSO'd with Okta. We have MFA in place, but they also want us to be SSO'd with Okta because this is the completeness and the completeness of the delivery. People worry about the test and the automation and the UI component and everything with that. Even to the level that they're thinking, how would the customer consume this? And they want to listen in on how did the consumer find this finding? Does that make sense?
It makes sense, yeah.
And design partners.
Another aspect for me too is what I liked us doing is, I'm going to throw Agile out there, which is, my favorite engineering process, but there are many others that will work. But the key there was weekly delivery.
Yes,
and
the demo.
The demo where you show, hey, this is what I did. And when you do the demo, it's very positive, of course, but people can also question is like, why the hell did you do this, right? Or who's going to use it? So there's some scrutiny as well to make sure there is alignment. And then weekly deployment to production.
Yes. Yes.
Kind of like, hey, if it's not in production, kind of it's not
Who
done.
cares?
It's not worth anything to me, right?
We went to right now delivery for our preview environment every hour.
Yeah. So yeah, of course, like you want to go faster. It's all about the process you follow. But some like you need to show progress, continuous progress. Well, you need continuous progress, and two, there should be checkpoints where you see that continuous progress from everybody on the team because you're all in one team. You're all rowing the boat forward.
Yes, and the demo, by the way, the thing that is really important, at least from my perspective, is bring all the stakeholders there. Bring the sales engineers, get them to understand the product, understand how to market this, understand what the problem is that you're solving. And this gives visibility into what we're actually building and how are we doing compared to what we promised.
And alignment too, right? Like if engineering is run away and is building something, sales doesn't care, that's kind of a waste. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of your resources.
Mm-hmm. Do you tie your team performance to any hard metrics of the business?
Yes.
Like
yes.
Having this feature bring that level of ARR?
No.
Is that, or having a customer happy with that? NPS score? Well, like how do you tie it?
So you have amazing and smart questions, right? So let's look at it before answering the detail, like one high level piece, right? And this is alignment of everybody to the same goal. And then I go back to the Viking ship, right? If you're on the Viking ship and it sinks, everybody drowns, right? And in your Viking ship, in your organization, I think the key to performance and incentives needs to be that everybody succeeds, right? Or everybody fails. There isn't individual success, even if the rest of the team fails. This is actually where villages fall down, right? There can be individual success for one person on one team, even though another team is doing poorly. And the way the Alpha project at Cisco was set up, certainly, right? And the way Genie is set up right now. There was no way for Didi and me to succeed individually in that Alpha project unless the whole team succeeds.
Correct.
Right? If either everybody's bonus pays because we reach our goals or nobody's, right? And in startups, either everybody's equity is worth something or not. Right, and this
and
is
you hit your ARR goals.
Yep.
For us, is everybody cares about the ARR goals.
So this is on the high level, right? Better everything you do is aligned to the goals that will make your startup successful. If you start going further down, the way I kind of looked at, maybe I like to simplify things because life can be too hard, but. Engineering for me has always been responsible for execution, like delivery of a feature, quality of a feature, scalability of a feature, supportability of a feature, security of it, and so on and so forth. But product, somebody who takes a product role in your organization, they are responsible for adoption of the feature. It's valuable to a customer. So it's a throat to choke, right? If my team doesn't deliver, it's my throat that gets choked, and that's okay. That's what I deserve, right? But if you deliver the feature, right, in partnership with somebody on the business side, and then customers don't care, well, that's a throat to choke. Because guess what? If you're asking me to deliver things, and then nobody cares, I'm not going to deliver for you anymore.
Yep.
Just gonna do something else. Not something random, obviously something that I believe or somebody else believe will push the business forward. So, Lital, back to your observation, yeah, absolutely. Like there is a tie-in to growing the business, and it's a shared responsibility, of course, of everybody. But folks who are requesting functionality to be built by the engineering team will take the majority of accountability of it being adopted, because if it's not, why did we waste our time on it?
Agreed. I think this is the point in time I'm looking at the clock. Let's do the
game.
Let's do the game.
This is time for a game.
And if Dennis has more stuff to say, he can stay for the second segment.
We can do the second one. We can talk about it.
And now Lital and Didi present Prove You're Not a Robot. 3 final authenticating questions for our guest.
So Dennis, if you were a security superhero, what would be your name and who would play you in the Hollywood movie? And no, Vladimir Putin is not an option.
So it has to be somebody who is an actor.
Exactly.
Okay, and cannot be a Russian actor who likes.
Could be Russian.
It could be a Russian actor.
No. I will be. I will be Mr. Awesome then, and I want to be played by Bruce Willis.
But you do have a hairline. Bruce Willis is more of a me thing. You need to find somebody with a better hairline.
Depends on what age of Bruce Willis.
Just
he
wait.
used to have some hair before.
If Morocco doesn't do well again in the next World Cup, I'm sure my hairline will be even further cut.
So I'll switch question number 2 because I don't want another RSA'er. But now you need to answer the important question.
Well,
if you mentioned Bruce Willis, this is an important question. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie? And if so, explain why.
Of course, it's a Christmas movie. Because it sets on Christmas. And actually, you made me think now that I realize that my kids have not seen it yet. We can watch it tomorrow for
I don't
Christmas.
think our kids saw Die Hard.
Of course they did.
Really?
The boys did.
Okay.
And this is, by the way, I am this is not a Christmas movie. At least
Why would it not be a Christmas movie? He has a Christmas hat.
He does have a Christmas hat. It happens in Christmas. The setting is in Christmas, but it doesn't have
I get it. There is no shopping.
Party, pal! Welcome to the party, pal!
It wouldn't be on Hallmark.
I don't know. So that's an active discussion. Question number 3. What new revolutionary technology and innovation will arrive in the next 15 years? And you can't say AI. Please don't say AI.
You can say, but
No,
it's
no.
already here.
So guys, I switched to life sciences. This is my new adventure for the next couple of years, at least. So I think this is what I'll focus on. Certainly, biology and what the folks are doing in biotech is just amazing, right? I'm hoping for a lot more cures of diseases, and I'm hoping maybe we can even start extending our lives by 20, 30 years, 40 years, and that will certainly be very revolutionary. The advances in biology today could create as much disruption as advances in technology in the mid to late 90s. We are living in exciting times.
This is awesome. By the way, I'm a big believer in CRISPR. I think I say this.
Big believer.
Yeah.
Both of us. I mean, the fact that you can actually cure disease by changing the genome, it's crazy, and it's working. There are a few diseases, then this is going to be a thing.
And the thing to talk through is, of course, security of the whole thing too, right? Because of course, if somebody goes and hacks into industrial power plants, it'll be very disruptive, and people will die from colds, and it's horrible. But if somebody releases a pathogen that has an incubation time like COVID does, like COVID did, and is deadly, there would be millions and millions of lives lost, maybe billions, and that is also a possibility in the new world. So we'll have brave new challenges to overcome in the coming years.
Yeah, it's super interesting. We can have just an episode about that. Like, people can maybe insert malicious code into vaccines. They're all printed, basically. That's a brave new world that we can think about.
Yep.
Well, that was a pleasure.
Thank you, Dennis.
Anything?
Thank you for having me
Summary?
here, guys. This was so much fun.
Awesome
I
to
hope
have you.
everybody learned some helpful tips about how to build your Viking ships. Thanks, Dennis. Thanks, Didi. Thank you for our listeners. Thank you for joining us. Please rate, review, and share with your friends. The Didi and Lital Show is sponsored by Hunters and Ort. Get us weekly wherever you get your podcast. Have a great week. See you soon.